And we are live.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Kimberly, can you take roll?
Vice President Carrie Nicholson.
Here.
Secretary Lisa Middleton.
Here.
Treasurer Larry Williams.
Here.
Trustee Matt Davis.
Here.
Trustee Shauna Gamble. Trustee Amanda Lankard.
Here.
Trustee Richard Lindsay.
Here.
Now we'll observe our customary moment of silence. Richard, would you do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Republic,
for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Move on to 2, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move for approval.
Larry, did you support?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Any discussion? No. Roll call. Richard,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and Carrie, yes. Move on to 3, members of the audience may address the board on agenda items only. Derek, anyone for comment?
We do not have anyone for comment.
Okay, thank you. Move on to 4, special order of business, elections of officers for the January 2021, December 2021 year. I'll give the background on that. Vice President Nicholson assembled a nominating committee of the Marshall Board of Education at the December 14th, 2020 combined work and business session. The committee included Carrie Nicholson, Lisa Middleton, and Shauna Gamble. Lisa Middleton served as chair. The committee developed the following recommendations for board officer assignments for the January 2021, December 2021 are as follows. President Richard Lindsay Jr., Vice President Carrie Nicholson, Secretary Lisa Middleton, Treasurer Larry Williams. It is the recommendation of the board vice president that the officers of the Marshall Board of Education be elected as presented. Could I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Support.
Any discussion? Okay. Go to a vote. Amanda,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Carrie, yes, and Richard.
Yes.
Well, I will let you, Richard, take over as chair.
I
Thank
feel like
you.
I could get up and move around. Just
Yes.
Do you have a gavel?
Yeah, I do somewhere. Thank you very much. And Carrie, thank you very much for serving as chair of the last couple meetings we've had. It's much appreciated. Let's move on to number 6, discussion, and Dr. Davis, COVID-19 current impacts.
Yeah, so items A, B, and C are just some information I thought would be important for us to for your consideration for reconfirmation of our COVID extended learning plan. I'd like to give you a COVID update first on A. This is our weekly update that I do and give you a 5-week glance and then what's transpired from the very beginning of school up until 5 weeks ago. If you look at this most recent reporting, on January 3rd through January 9th, we had 1 student reported as positive and 1 adult reported as positive. There were no school-associated close contacts that were identified. For either of those, there were family close contacts identified with the staff member. In 110 through 116, which is the week we're currently in, we've had 2 students as probable positive cases. We have not got test results back, but it was confirmed as positive or probable positives by the county health department. And we had 1 staff member that came up positive. I'm going to tweak this form a little bit so we can represent our departments, because one of the staff members came out of our transportation department that came up positive. So far this week, we've had 2 students and 1. Overall, we've had 100 students identified as probable or confirmed cases and 24 staff members identified as positive or confirmed. As you can see, the frequency that we've had in the last 5 weeks has been relatively low. We've gone through the holiday though. We haven't been necessarily in session, but being in session or not in session really hasn't truly impacted our COVID positive reporting, because primarily these are associations and exposure outside of school. The other thing I want to say about the COVID situation here in Calhoun County, our most recent 7-day average for new cases was at 7.5%. Our most recent incidences per million residents is 197.5. While those are still high, they have been trending downward for the last number of weeks. I'd say the last 3 or 4 weeks. One of the things that we were concerned about though is hospitalizations continued to be high about 3 weeks ago, and so did our death rate. Actually, the good news is the hospitalizations have decreased over the last 3 weeks, and our death rates have gone down as well, thankfully. And so things relative to the holiday, this is a hot, this could be a big week, and we're watching the state and the counties. But right now, Calhoun County seems to be doing decently and relative to what the expected surge was going to be. This week and next week, though, we're not out of the woods. We have to continue to monitor it, but that's where we're at this point. Does anybody have any questions about that? One of the good things, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just have a question on the graph. On the second to last column on the right, it seems to switch the staff and the students around instead of, because usually it lists the students and staff. I wonder if that was just an error.
That's
or
an error. Thank
okay,
you.
so the 2 and the, so it's 2 students. Okay,
Yep.
so okay.
My mistake. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
Nope. I said it verbally right. I just had it wrong on the graph. We'll change that. Like I said, I'm going to adjust by putting another row in there that talks about departments represented. Thank you for that. The matrix that I shared with you at the county level, we're going to talk about this in the next business session. But the matrix, most recently, when we came back last week after the holiday, we ended up becoming moderate at risk level. That tells you how things have progressed. We were our highest risk level for 3 weeks, I think, 3 or 4 weeks running. And the most recent one where if you recall, the local data that's given to me for the district relative to the county, we became moderate. And that was really good news to see. This coming Wednesday, I'll get more of that particular data for our district and county, and I'll be able to report out to you where we sit at that point. Okay. The other thing I want to mention about COVID while we're talking about it is you've all seen the governor's, I think you've seen the governor's press conference and the outcome of that press conference. There was also, it talks about in person, but it also talked about and we'll talk about that in a second, but it also talked about the fact that the vaccines are going to start for 1B as of today. And she made a pretty significant announcement that teachers were going to be involved in that. Unfortunately, the health departments weren't quite prepared for that kind of a statement because they're still actually finishing up the 1A priority groups. We've talked to the health department. I sent out an all email user blast, let people know where we currently stand in regards to vaccinations for schools. Did that last week, or actually on Saturday. What we know now is that this week, our county health department will be finishing up 1A priority grouping and probably have one more mass vaccination clinic next week relative to 1A. And then 1B, which is the group we're in and we're priority for that group, they'll start to roll out scheduling both the vaccination clinic and the follow-up booster clinic specific to a school district. And then it will be site-based. So they'll bring the vaccination clinic to our schools. They'll work with me on which school will house the clinic. Eric Pessel already recognizes that we may have one in Albion and one in Marshall. So, you know, he's thinking through that process as well. Not sure when that's going to happen. Nobody really knows until they get through 1A, but we're excited about moving forward with that. It's my hope that we can have our clinic in vaccination and then turn around and have our booster in time enough to get through the month of February and enter into the month of March. The other thing I need to say about that is we're not sure if we're going to get Moderna or we're going to get Pfizer biotech. That depends on the vaccines that are available. Apparently a number of districts or counties have been reporting out locally in this area that vaccines are a little bit low right now. I'm not sure what that means and what to project, but we're excited. Danielle Siebert, our school nurse, is working closely, not only with Oaklawn Hospital, but also with the health department. And the health department is going to generate the priority list. They're going to hold on to any kind of waiting list that might exist for each one of the districts. They'll work with us closely about that. And as I said, we're right now, we're surveying all of our, it was 360 staff. Now it's gone up to 420. I'm sorry, 406, because we're including the itinerant staff from the ISD that actually work in our district pretty much full time. But anyways, as we go through that process, we're surveying all of our employees to ask them whether they're going to take a vaccine or not take a vaccine. And that's going to help determine what the quality or what the quantity of vaccines we're going to receive as a school district. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So Richard, that's A. Going into 6B, you had the press release from Dr. Weiss, which is up on the screen now. And you'll have also a copy of the guidelines coming out of the state from the Department of Health and Human Services. The bottom line with all of this is that the governor wanted to make sure that by March 1st, every district in the state of Michigan out of the 852 districts are prepared to provide some level of in-person instruction. I was hoping that the conversation would go a little further than that in regards to social distancing. There are some caveats within social distancing that say our younger kids can have social distancing 3 to 6 foot. We elected not to do that. We took the most highly recommended. If you remember that when we first adopted our extended learning plan, we took the highly recommended piece and continued on that way. Perhaps if the vaccinations go through and we get our first vaccination and booster, All of our staff are feeling confident about that. We continue to practice all the really good safety practices we do, including cohorting being maintained at the elementary school. I think there's a possibility by the time we get to March, we could consider or reconsider what we're doing in regards to social distancing in the elementary schools. That has a lot of conversation to be had. And I'm just thinking that right now the governor wants everybody to be back in some level of hybrid by March 1st or earlier, if possible. The state superintendent supports that contention. And there's been a lot of research out there that indicates that our K through fifth grade are the least risk. And there is no real evidence showing that there is transference of the virus heavily in our school settings. In fact, our school settings tend to be one of the most consistent and safer environments in which our kids are finding themselves. So,
Dr. Davis, can I just ask a clarifying question? When you say that everybody should be back, are they saying that all districts should be offering in person, or that every person, even the people that are just doing virtual now, should have some sort of in person?
Yes, no, they're saying that every district should provide some type of hybrid in-person instruction. And the hybrid just simply means, because the social distancing right now, it's almost impossible to provide for our total population at one given time. There are still going to be students and families choosing to continue to do virtual only instruction. And that is an option and will continue to be an option for the remainder of the school year, at least. The governor's just saying she wants to see every district at least providing some level of in-person instruction that some students can access or choose to access.
Have they looked too about whether there's any difference in spread with the schools that have the Wednesday off for deep cleaning versus the schools that don't?
No,
So it
I
seems
haven't-
like, yeah, it seems like contact spread doesn't seem to be felt to be as much of an issue anymore compared to like when we were thinking of things back in March and April.
Yeah.
So.
No, you're right, Carrie. That first startup. I mean, I'm still seeing articles that come up about touch and those types of things, but not anywhere close to where it was at the height of the beginning of the pandemic. That's an interesting question that you raised and something that we can consider. We're going to continue, obviously, to come back every month for reconfirmation. This reconfirmation now is for February, and in February, we'll be talking about March. So I'm looking forward to more information.
Yeah, it just seems like if our numbers do come down quite a bit, that would be something to consider if we're not finding that the schools are having much transmission. I'm not sure that having that day of deep cleaning is making a difference, but it may make a big difference in the kids and their education at the elementary level.
Yeah.
Dr. Davis, I know that we briefly communicated about the 3 foot to 6 foot spacing with students in classrooms, and you know how many students we could hold. Like, we chose to do 6 feet to be as safe as we could possibly be in our district. And just revisiting to look at that, because I know some of the guidelines have changed as we continue to learn about COVID and get better at managing and handling that. Do we know, it seems like I can recall filling out something back, maybe it was November or so, about families' plans for their students. You know, are you going to maintain doing the hybrid? If you can, are you going to continue to do distance learning for next semester? Do we know, depending on, again, how things evolve, and with this new recommendation to try to get back to some type of hybrid learning by March 1st, do we know how many more families or students are choosing to come back to school that maybe chose virtual in the first place, or vice versa? It seems like I remember filling something out, you know, a while ago, maybe before Thanksgiving. And I was just wondering, like, you know, like how many more students are wanting to come back that chose virtual, and just some of those numbers? And if you don't have it now, maybe just something for later.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me, Lisa. What I can tell you is we've added 2 new elementary sections because of the students leaving virtual and coming back in. And possibly in second semester, we do get some influx of new students coming in for school of choice. But we've added a section at Hughes, and we've added a section at at Gordon. No, I'm sorry. Becky, can you help me with that? Is that Hughes and Harrington?
We have a section that we added at Hughes and one at Gordon, and then we just posted 2 positions at Harrington.
Yes, because we'll be adding classes back into Harrington.
Correct. So I think it's 4 altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
And any influx of students that have crossed over from virtual to in-person, Lisa, for the second semester coming up at the secondary level, grades 6 through 12, all of them can be accommodated because we're still working with the cohort groups.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that press release piece? Okay. Then the less, I thought the conversations, we've kind of danced around a little bit. We looked at that matrix from the county being recommended for decision-making on extracurricular and co-curriculars. Athletics has always been an up and down issue we've been following, and Dan has really been working his best through that process on guidance. I'd like to, Dan, if you're available, I'd like you to kind of present what you've given us in writing. Generally, where are we at with high school athletics and middle school athletics?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I wasn't aware that my document was going to make the meeting, so that's great. Basically, right now we're in a holding pattern again, waiting to see if this Thursday or this Friday, January 15th, is the end of the current pause as it is stated today, or if that is to be extended. If it is, quote, a finish line at this time, we're scheduled to begin athletic practices this Saturday, the 16th. MHSAA approved, and we're moving forward with that for right now. And of course, we know that if anything occurs this week to extend the current pause, we'll make those adjustments. The interstate ADs, we met last week, reconfigured our schedules. I think we called them 3.0 because this is the 3rd attempt that we've made at creating winter schedules for not only the high school winter sports, but also the paused boys middle school basketball season, and then pushed back the girls basketball and co-ed wrestling that occurs at the middle school to start later in February, as opposed to starting last week when we returned from traditional break. So again, MHSAA is constantly evolving their decisions. You may be aware, saw some highlights on the news this weekend that the football playoffs resumed. Unfortunately, a somewhat mild January Saturday in the state of Michigan. Those games are going to resume again this coming weekend with the semifinals, with the finals to be the following weekend. Our state, we have one state qualifying diver who has been part of the testing pilot program with her 2 coaches. And she's been practicing for the last week and a half, and will practice the rest of this week and compete Friday at the Division III state meet. Volleyball and football, we are eliminated from the playoffs prior to the pause. But around the state, those teams that are still in the playoffs are competing and in the process of practicing that pilot testing sponsored by the MDHHS. The couple of links that are in this article would redirect you, if you're able to click on those at some point, to the MHSAA website. The MHSA website is continuously updating. Trying to lead our coaches to start the winter season. And many of the return to play guidelines that are also found on this website. You can scroll down a little bit there and it will show you. Those are the list of updates that have occurred. And it also has some information on this page about the testing, the pilot testing program. For each sport, as I mentioned, I think when I spoke to everyone back in August at the middle school cafeteria, there's a return to play guideline. And those guidelines were updated in October, then again November, and the winter sport ones will need to be updated yet again because we've had changes. Will we have spectators? As it is written today, we will not have spectators for our winter competitions. However, last week, the MHSAA, in partnership with the MDHS, allowed limited spectators to volleyball and football playoffs. I believe how that trends and how that plays out will then determine if we are allowed to have any spectators for our indoor winter sports. And if we do have spectators, it will be very limited, pretty much the way we started with spectators in the fall. So we're kind of waiting and seeing. I think I also mentioned in this document that our coaches have attended the MHSAA rules meetings, but also the health and safety meetings, which also this year, of course, cover some of those COVID details and protocols. So our girls basketball program did start before the last break, and they had tryouts, and girls wore their masks in the gym along with the coaches and participated in drills with masks on. And as it is right now, that's what we will be doing starting this coming week, by the end of the week. So that was a quick overview. There is so much information, and unfortunately, because of how quickly things change over, sometimes the information is contradictory. And we have to double back and read multiple documents to make sure that we are doing the current protocols that are asked of us. And like I said, I'm anticipating by the end of the week, another set of updates from the MHSAA for winter sports and guidance. Dr. Davis, any specific questions or anything that you were looking for me to mention that would be helpful?
No, I think we all know how tentative this situation can be, and I appreciate the flexibility that you and others have had, the coaches and so forth. It's got to be frustrating circumstance for all of you, but in particular our student athletes, trying to figure out what their roadmap is. Just keep us posted on how things are going. For the life of me, I don't understand how certain sports will go forward, and I'm not going to really belabor that point, but what's near and dear to my experience and background, and I'm just kind of wondering how that's going to work. But I know that we'll look at the guidance and you'll do the best we can to pull that off. Are we seeing a decrease in student participation or student interest in athletics?
Well, of course, that is difficult to assess at this point. Many of them have not even started yet. And so we haven't had the first day of tryouts or practice to glean those numbers. And the normal, I hate saying that word because it seems like so much part of our past, right? But what we would normally do when we were in school is hold meetings and have face-to-face conversations for kids to sign up. Our coaches have been, like our teachers, and many of our coaches are teachers, have been creative in creating Google surveys to try to collect student names and emails and contacts. My daughter made the JV basketball team and was part of a Google Meet with her coach and her teammates just yesterday. So that is occurring. Our numbers I think overall, and we will not be alone in this, but I think it will be a trend across the state and probably the country. Numbers will be down because some children, some families are choosing to opt out.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that also is logistics are difficult. It's not the best of all worlds to be able to pull these off and bring our same numbers of interest back. I also worry about it being an indication of social emotional challenges that may be occurring as everybody continues to plod through this pandemic situation.
Yeah, we could use the word normal again and say that not just us as adults, but especially students and student athletes are adjusting to their new normal.
Yeah.
You know, if we take a snapshot at just what Marshall achieved in the fall, we had a lot of success with our teams. A lot of success, you know, playoff wins, a couple all region coaches. So our kids were resilient. Our coaches were dedicated. Families were supportive. And I think if we can carry on that same success that we had in the fall into the winter, I think it will gain momentum and even build up even more so in the spring when we're outside for athletics, which will certainly be probably a little bit easier than what is to manage the indoor sports.
Good deal. All right. Thanks, Dan. Anybody have any questions on the board?
Dan, this isn't so much a question as it is just a way to publicly say thank you for all your efforts in creating these schedules. You were saying it's 3.0, and I can't imagine all the work that goes into doing that now the third time around. And I imagine it's like writing a term paper just to have your instructor say, nope, don't like this, start over. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for that. It's, you know, I know it's part of your job, but, you know, third time around, I'm sure it gets tedious and frustrating. And so just thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I want to share that. Thank you, because I think our coaches have been a big part of us to be, you know, successful and have supported me. Dana Miller, our new athletic director, athletic department administrative assistant, has been terrific in her first year jumping into this new role in this kind of a year. And also probably a shout out to our I-8 league. The athletic directors in our league, we have worked very closely together this entire time, now for the last 10 months, and have worked hard to be consistent across the board. And, you know, we share the responsibility without a doubt. We're not alone. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Good. Richard, that concludes this part of the presentation or the discussion. Thanks,
All
Dan.
right. Thanks, Dan. Again, echo what Lisa said. Thank you very much for your hard work on this. So Randy, part D is the new board retreat. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Had a conversation with a couple of you already about this, and the hope is for us to be able to schedule something in February. I would like to suggest that we consider 2 dates. I just don't think one day in and of itself is going to get through all of what we need to discuss. I think we need to have some grounding in our vision, and we have to rethink our mission and vision statement, make sure that we're comfortable in the direction we're going and what can be reinforced or even stated more succinctly. I think we need to talk about or discuss some of our anchor expectations and objectives for the district, what we hope we are and what we hope to become. I think there's a couple large projects that are sitting out there at a higher level for the district in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, in regards to a potential capital improvement bond, and some of the questions that are being raised right now on some of our facilities. I also think the whole issue that's all generated about still growing past the annexation and coming finding ways to become one district that serves the full communities that we cover is going to be an important dialogue as well. I'm wondering what you're thinking in regards to a retreat. I know Lisa had some good comments about that, just because it would be nice to be in a position of a retreat that we can actually meet mask to mask and in a way that we can see each other and interact with each other. And I think we can do that. I'm still working on that. MASB says that we don't qualify as a non-resident group, and therefore we can't meet in person. I think we've had counsel also from Truan and also MASA that says if we can keep those in attendance down to a certain amount, we can still make it open for people to log in if they'd like to electronically and be a part of the meeting. So I'm still working on that, Lisa, for your request. But I'm interested in finding out from all of you, what are you hoping to accomplish out of a retreat?
Would we have a facilitator come in to help walk us through some of those pieces that you identified?
Yeah, we could do that. Are you suggesting you'd prefer to have somebody external come in and work with us on that?
I think it's going to be easier. I know in my experience, it's hard to be a part of the conversation when you're trying to facilitate the conversation and get everybody to participate and digest and synthesize what everybody is saying. So I absolutely think that staff should be a part of that. You should be a part of that, and key staff. And I think it's going to be difficult to do without a facilitator.
Thank you.
I guess I definitely want communication to be part of it, both district. I guess all forms of communication within within the board, so within the members, and then the members to the superintendent out to the rest of the body. I was thinking actually with talking with Lisa, and I thought Lisa was in the last strategic planning that we did, but it was prior to her being on the board. So it's been a number of years since we've done this, and we've got a lot of new members, and we've never really, I don't believe we've really talked about board roles and communication, those types of things. I want to talk about those definitely.
Good.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Richard.
But I was just wondering if it would be worth. Well, go ahead, Matt. Let me see what people say first.
My goal is to would be to kind of uptake a lot of information, inject what ideas I might have for thought and discussion, and do some team building. Get to know you guys better, work with one another. In a little different manner, a little closer, even if it's just for a couple of half days or full days or whatever it is. I think, it would be good for everybody's level of trust and bridge building if we all sat down and talked with one another a little bit.
Good.
So I do think that we still need to talk about Harrington, and I do hear a lot of ideas about, like, if we had a new school, about how things would be revamped and how things would work with the college and different things. And I don't know if that would fit best in strategic planning, because it is talking about how we're going to move forward, or if we need to do that at a separate official board meeting with it, because we still don't have a report back of really outcomes post annexation of where we're at, what we're doing with Harrington, particularly staffing. So when I hear Gordon has a new teacher and Hughes has a new teacher, but Harrington needs 2 new teachers that aren't filled, it emphasizes that it just seems like Harrington's always looking for staff, and so addressing some of that.
Yeah, Carrie, can I address that just a little bit, because I think there might be a little misunderstanding about the 2 new positions. When we have had a lot of our teachers at Harrington actually step over into the virtual elementary program, and because of numbers that were left with students choosing to go in person, we had low class sizes and we tried to keep them at basically 19 in each classroom. It was the most we could put in there based on 6-foot social distancing. Because of the students that are choosing to come back to in-person in second semester, while it's not huge, we still want to honor the 6-foot social distancing. So we're adding 2 teachers back in, 2 positions back in. So it's not like there's a vacancy that's created. It's more like we're hiring in and we're working back towards making sure through equity that every elementary school has 2 teachers per class per grade level in their building. And this is an opportunity for us to bring them back slowly and start working in more students into the classroom. So it's a little bit different than what you've talked about in the past in regards to attrition rates and those kind of things. But I understand that's what you want to make sure you're looking at, a stability of the staffing model and
Yep.
Those types of things. So I get it.
Yeah, and it is different in that it wasn't somebody leaving, and so you have a spot, but it's still the same in that we're trying to hire people last minute, and sometimes it's harder to find, like qualified people when you're, trying to hire them a week before. And we don't know, sometimes it takes a while to find those teachers, and we've had issues where we've had long-term subs or some classes that have had recurrent subs over and over. And so, that's the issue of whether it's because somebody leaving or not. It's still the fact that there are those openings and the other 2 schools have those teachers already. And I'm not certain, if we're going to have those teachers when we want them at Harrington.
Okay.
So just either way, that it still needs to be addressed.
Got it.
The other thing I was going to ask, Randy, are we decided when exactly we're going to make the decision on what on that list goes into a bond if we're going to do that? And the reason I ask is I'd like to have an hour or 2 to discuss this. I'm really, really interested in what the other board members think. And I think we ought to have a really solid discussion as opposed to trying to squeeze it into a regular board meeting. So are you thinking that can be one of these sessions, would be that actual discussion?
I was thinking we start with these agenda items and we put on a 4-hour retreat on one day. Then we have another one scheduled in the backdrop for 4 hours and see how much through the agenda we think we can get through, Richard. And then if we want to tag that on, we can do that, or we could, we have 3 more open forums with the board relative to the bond. And after that, you're going to have to really boil it down and have a pretty good understanding as a board what you think your priority pockets or buckets are going to be, and to what extent or scope that you're looking at. This could fit in well if we have, like, I was thinking the first Saturday in February and the second Saturday in February might be a good time for people to consider on the 6th and the 13th. And then, like I said, you and I could work on the agenda from what the feedback we've gotten, kind of structure what that looks like, Richard, then put that out to everybody and see if we can pace ourselves through some of that.
That makes sense to me. Does anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, so Oakland will probably be starting their vaccination clinics on Saturdays in February, and I need to help out with some of those. So maybe I can get back to you, but I'm not sure that having 2 back-to-back, the first and the second Saturdays in February is going to work for me.
Okay.
But maybe if I can get back to you guys in a couple of days.
So you would like to suggest that we at least have a gap of 2 weeks between one and the other?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then you can let us know when they're going to be doing mass vaccinations.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's all fluid, kind of like you have, where we don't know when we're going to get the vaccines or how many, but we think it's likely starting the Saturday the 6th, and I expect that it will probably be 3 or 4 or maybe even more Saturdays in a row. And we're just rotating who is going to be manning those. So I don't have to be there every Saturday. But I should talk with the other two and see what their availability is.
Okay.
So if I can get back with you in a day or two.
Yeah. Richard, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay with the two of us? Okay.
Yep, that'd be good.
Is Saturday the only option? Is that, I didn't hear us
No,
dial in on that, so
we could be open.
I'm
to
not going to
more
be,
than
I'm not available every Saturday in February, so doesn't matter. I don't have to be there, but
that.
you know, I think that if we're doing multiple Saturdays in 1 month, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't mind having one I know you're concerned, Matt, and wouldn't mind doing one during the week. I just didn't want it to be, again, we had this discussion about the bond. I didn't want it to be within a regular agenda. So maybe we start at 6 and go for a couple, 3 hours. We'll come up with some dates and send them out to people to propose.
I would recommend we keep the bond separate from strategic planning. Although they're connected, I think the bond discussion is going to be different. Just my thoughts. And I also am curious, for those of you who have done strategic planning with the district before, what has been our practice, or maybe that's not a good way to put it. I would like to recommend that we include input and feedback from the community and teachers. I think it gets to the, how can we move this district forward and get everybody on the same page, rowing in the same direction? And I think that comes from having conversations with our parents, conversations with our students, conversations with our business leaders, because we are not on our own continent. It takes a lot of different stakeholders and community members to make sure that our educational delivery is the best that it can be, to make sure that our students are successful. And I wonder if it could be another facet of strategic planning to find out a way to include the community and parents and teachers somehow in the strategic planning.
Those are good thoughts, Amanda. I agree with you. That's very important to do. And part of me thinks that for us to do that well, that we as a group need to work really well together. So I would encourage us to take this first board retreat together for us to, you know, there's been a lot of changes. There's new people. I know some people better than others. So I just think it'd be great for us to really work together on, you know, what are our skill sets? What are our strengths? You know, who's better at, you know, doing this versus that? You know, what motivates you versus, you know, Larry versus Carrie, and just really kind of get our board and this group working really well together, because then we can build on that and take that out to those other groups that you mentioned. So it would be nice maybe to take this first one and focus on this group, and then let that grow with all the different groups that you mentioned. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and as the last person that was involved in this that's on the board currently, frankly, I don't really remember what we did last time, Randy. But I guess I would agree with Lisa. I think we need to meet and develop relationships and some of these basic things, and then maybe we develop a process going forward for what this looks like in future years, and maybe we do that in a couple months, because I agree that we need to do that.
Yeah.
Problem is, we're going to end up with 14 hours worth of stuff to do if we try to put it all into one.
Right.
Well, to Amanda's point, Richard, you know, we can't, I think part of the process is getting to know each other a little bit more, building stronger relationship connections with each other. moving forward and identifying key areas that really we want to sink our teeth into. And then possibly, Amanda, structuring around getting that feedback. We can do, Richard talked about focus groups, but you can really do a really nice job with fishbowl activity that allows people to come in from different sectors and talk about key issues that we identify as a board that needs to be put on the table, and help define what our character looks like, our district looks like, our mission, and see if the mission and vision statement resonates with folks, those types of things. So maybe this is part of the first step, is getting that foundation and recognizing what those are. And as Richard said, throughout the year, we can have these episodes where we do fishbowl activities and come back out of that with some pretty good input from people. We've done that before. Richard, you'll remember that when we talked about curriculum impact with career and technical education and local manufacturers. So we can do those types of things too during the year to get feedback from our constituents.
It was one of the most insightful nights that I remember, is that fishbowl process with the local manufacturers. Sorry, Amanda.
Oh, that's fine. I'm interested to learn more about fishbowls and what this looks like. So I think that maybe that first 4-hour session would be more about laying the foundation, learning, building relationships, mission, vision, like very 50,000, 100,000 foot overview. And then we can drill down as we move forward. Maybe we start off with the first 4 hours, and then at the end of the 4 hours, we see how far we've gone and what we need to do next as a group.
Sure.
So I'm not having any difficulty getting feedback from people. I'm getting talked to every day by different folks about what's going on in the school system. So my concern is more working together, building a good team, understanding where everybody's coming from on the team internally, from both the elected side and the professional side, and a lot less about taking public feedback right now on that stuff. But that's just me.
I think let's start with it sounds like we're in agreement to start with the 4 hours and team building and some of those basic issues, and then kind of see where we're at. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yep.
I agree. I agree with that.
Good deal.
All right. Sounds good, right? So we'll talk more and develop an agenda and send it out to people to comment on, and then come up with some dates.
Try to get the dates. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Matt, you like Saturdays, right? That's my understanding. Sorry, a little humor there.
No, there's nothing better, I'm sure, to the professional staff than us scheduling Saturday work sessions on one of their only 2 days off. I think we should stay away from Saturdays if at all possible.
I do remember the joy at the county and having Saturday meetings. So, all right, sounds good. We'll work on that. Number 7 is review and public comment related to the district's COVID-19 extended preparedness plan for learning only. Do we have anybody?
We do not have any public comment.
You have none?
We do not have any. None.
All right. If we don't have any comments, action or number 8 is action item curriculum instruction other. Reconfirmation of COVID-19 extended learning plan. Randy, can you give us the background, please?
Yep. At the September 28, 2020 board business session, the board approved the district's COVID-19 extended learning plan. The board has reviewed, sought public input, and reconfirmed the plan monthly since the plan was approved by the board. The district is required to hold a reconfirmation meeting every 30 days. Earlier on the agenda, a monthly review of the district's COVID-19 extended preparedness and response plan for learning that was discussed. The board took public comment regarding the plan, of which there was none. The board will now consider the reconfirmation of the COVID-19 extended preparedness and response plan for learning. It is a recommendation for the superintendent that action item curriculum and instruction other be approved as presented.
All right, entertain a motion to approve action item curriculum and instruction other as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Yeah, motion support. Any discussion?
Just to say that we're continuing forward with no changes at this juncture.
All right. All right, no comments. We start with Amanda.
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Larry,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Richard, yes. Motion's carried. All right, sorry.
We will be posting that on our website this week.
All right, very good. Item number 9 is action items, annual organization, February 2021 to January 2022. A is set work and business sessions for the Board of Education. We've been provided with a schedule. And again, Randy, we're going to alternate back and forth between Marshall and Albion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then do I need to read through these or do you want to read through these? These are kind of.
Yeah, I can read through that. Let me look at how this goes down. Are we going to take all these items one at a time then?
Set up all together. I think they're set up to take A through F all together.
Okay. Good. Okay, so basically the nuts and the bolts of this is work sessions and business sessions. Historically, the board has done a work session and a business session per month. There are times where we've done combined business and work sessions based on the schedule for the school calendar year. So for example, the first time we have a combined work session, business session for this current year would be April 26, 2021, due to obviously the spring break situation. Another one usually is in July. So on July 26, due to the 4th of July holiday, we're going to do a combined work and business session on the 26th of July as proposed. November has one and also December has one. My only suggestion on that is that we may end up finding that we have to do have to break that out, like possibly in April or so, if we're leading up towards a bond discussion or other things are coming up in forums and so forth. I just, I think we can be flexible if the board so desires to be able to split those combined sessions back out and schedule or do another schedule to get some for that month to have an extra meeting if we need to.
I think that's fine. All right.
That's 9A has been presented to you as a board. If you guys have any questions about that, know that we already have and we improve. You notice in January of this new proposal, January 24th is the annual organizational and combined work session. I'm sorry, January 24th is a business session of 2022. We did the same thing last year. So your next business session is coming up 2 weeks from today. It's already on and already been approved by the previous board. That makes sense to people?
Yep. All right, and B is designate as banks of depositories. You've got the banks listed.
Yeah, I guess let me read through the backdrop of each of these, I guess, and we'll just, so I'm sorry, Richard, let me go through the backdrop.
Okay.
A is the Marshall Board of Education has established a routine of the regular session of the board each month at 7 p.m. in the middle school community room or the Marshall Opportunity High School auditorium. The first meeting of the month is a work session, followed by a business session at the second meeting. Superintendent and designee post special meeting notices. A proposed meeting schedule would continue the current arrangements with the board meeting the second and fourth Mondays of the month, with April, July, November, and December sessions being combined, and both May meetings being moved up a week due to Memorial Day holiday. B, a Bank of America Merrill Lynch, TCF Bank, Flagstar Bank, Huntington Bank, Marshall Community Credit Union, and Southern Michigan Bank and Trust have been established as banks of depository by the Marshall Board of Education in the past. Continuance of the practice would provide consistency in depositories for the 2021 calendar year. Then under C, TCF Bank, MBIA Municipal Investors Service Corporation, Baker Tilly, Bank of America, Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, and Marshall Community Credit Union have been the established brokers for Marshall Public Schools. Reputation and work is highly respected, and returns have been as expected with brokers. Therefore, they are being recommended for the 2021 calendar year. In D, Truant Law Firm, PC, expert attorneys in education issues, and the firm of Schroeder DeGraw PLC, locally represented, have been the district's designated law firms for several years. Continuance of this practice would provide consistency in legal representation for the 2021 calendar year. E, the Constitution of the Calhoun Area School Board Members Association, CASMA, states under Article 5, Section 4, that each board of the association shall appoint annually one of its members to the CASMA Board of Directors and an alternate to serve in the absence of the members. This year, the names of, I have not heard what's being proposed to put forward, Richard, so from an action item, we need to identify that. Okay.
I'm willing to continue on as the designee, and I don't know if Carrie's willing to. Amanda also asked me what this was, and usually when you ask what something is, and you get appointed to it. So, does anybody else want to be the alternate?
I think it would be a good position for Amanda. I've done it before and know what it's about. And I do think it's good to get to know some other people from other districts. And so if you have any questions, particularly as a newer member about how other districts do things, it's a place where you can get to know people. And the alternates actually doesn't seem to be used very often either. But yeah,
an alternate would be used only if Richard couldn't attend, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Well, Richard, you better.
I'm able to go to most of the meetings, but I'm sure there'll be a couple that you'll be able to go to.
Is this a monthly meeting or a quarterly?
No, it's like every other month, and actually hasn't met since March of last year. So they haven't even been doing Zoom meetings in the interim. The main thing that it does is to, maybe the most important thing is review the budget before it comes back for the ISD, before it comes back to the board for review and approval. And that in the 10 years I've been on the board, we only really had one issue with that. So normally it goes smoothly, right, Randy?
Yes, normally. So if you're good with that, Amanda, then in our action item on all of these items, we'll include Richard as the delegate and Amanda as the alternate. You good with that? Okay.
That works.
Good. So F is in accordance with the board policy. The board shall, at the organizational meeting, designate the electronic transfer office ETO in accordance with policy 6144. The board designates Becky Jones as the district's ETO to complete such transactions on behalf of the board. It is a recommendation of the superintendent that action items A through F under the annual organization be approved as presented.
All right, thank you, Randy. Entertain a motion to approve the action items for annual organization as presented.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Do we have a practice to go out for RFPs for attorney services every so often? So that's my first question. And then Thrun, what does Thrun handle and what does Schroeder DeGraw handle?
Well, that's a good question. Becky can answer a little bit of that, I think. Thrun handles primarily all the legal operations under us as a PSA, public LEA, a local educational entity. And gives us all the counseling that we need legally in regards to personnel, in regards to contracting, in regards to issues of the board with board policies, bylaws, etc. So they do the big arching stuff. Locally, we use Schroeder de Graaf for particular local issues primarily that have to do with our operations within our district that don't go over into those areas that I'm talking about. Sometimes it would be financials or different things like that. Do you have anything else to say about that? Or Richard, do you have anything else to say?
That's a good description. Randy,
I was going to say that you did that description well. So I have nothing more to add to that.
Okay.
But Randy, relative to the banks, the institutions, I understand several of these. I was curious about Huntington Bank and Bank of America. I remember prior business manager, there were a bunch of different banks we had when we had the bond money. Are those left over from that? There's no Huntington Bank around here that I'm aware of.
We don't even have any money in Huntington Bank right now. So I kind of went over that and looked at that. And then Bank of America just has a small amount of money left in it from a little bond project. So that's about all that's in there. TCF Bank, otherwise known as Chemical Bank, is where we do our business with banking pretty much.
So they are becoming Huntington though, right?
Okay. So I didn't remove Huntington.
Oh, so it's the new Huntington.
Yeah. So I left it on there. We don't have anything in Huntington right at this moment in time. So.
Okay. I was just curious. And I was also wondering about Homestead Savings is another bank that's in the Albion community that's locally owned and operated, but okay. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. So we had, sorry, I'm going back down. We had a motion and second. Let's vote. And Shauna's not here. Matt.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
I vote yes. And Amanda.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. And scrolling back down. All right. Public comment. Anybody here to make public comment?
There is none.
All right. And board member comments for which no action may be taken at this meeting. All right. If no one has any comments, thank you very much. And
Can I offer something? Just
well,
before.
yeah, go ahead, Dr.
I just wanted to let you know, I did rounds today with all the buildings as our students came back in for in-person after a long hiatus. And there's a lot of excitement in the buildings, a lot of enthusiasm for the teachers and the students being back in. It was good to see. So I just want you to know that it was a good startup and we'll see how things go.
Good. I just wanted to mention too, I thought the forum on Saturday went really well. So kind of bounce that out again to your friends on social media, and thought it went well and had some good comments and better attendance than I thought, which is always a positive thing. So
good.
All right, any further comments? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.